Hi, Yashish. Good to see you in the lovely sports t-shirt that epitomizes your spirit, who you are. We have a lot of students here in the Zoom room. I have been cruel with them by putting everyone on mute right now just for you to speak. But students, as I said, Yashish, I had introduced you very briefly. Yashish Dahiya is a super successful startup founder. And many of you would know, have heard the name Policybazaar. Whoever has heard the name Policybazaar, if you can raise your virtual hands, it would be great to see. Right? Everyone? Okay, thank you. I can see hands raised. Right? Fantastic. So, if you ever think who started Policybazaar, here's the person on the screen with you. Now, uh, Yashish is also IIT Delhi alumni and avid sports person, does multiple stuff, and that's why he's in a very sporty outlook. Yashish, we just to give you a quick background, Youth Ideathon is one of the interventions that I don't know if you remember Shivani, she was in Kailash, so both of us run. And it is now, last year we had about 1.5 lakh school students participate, submit innovation stroke entrepreneurship ideas. So and that's the kind of movement which is going on. You have about 100 students who have signed up, and they will be interacting with you. And then we'll also put the nice edited version of this video in the YouTube for more students to see. So this is...
And Sanjeev, how is the format? Are we going to have a Q&A kind of thing, or how do we run this?
I thought that if we do a Q&A, I'll do the initial Q&A, and then there are a number of students who have got a lot of interesting questions they would really want to be heard by you. And then, and when you think your time is up, you tell me, and then we will sort of wrap it up in 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, thank you. Let's start.
Okay. So, and these are all the questions that I have received from students, right? So what I did was summarize some of them, and my first question is how did you end up starting Policybazaar? What went on? How was it? What is the brief journey about Policybazaar?
So I think it was 2008, and I was in the UK, and I was working for a company called eBookers. And one fine day, they decided to remove me. And I was actually looking for a job. And in that job search, I came across a company called Admiral, which had a branch which did something very similar to what Policybazaar does today. And at some point, we as a family decided that why join them. There was a particular reason. They were based far away from London. So I used to live in London. This was in Cardiff, which was about 4 or 5 hours away. So we as a family decided that instead of moving to Cardiff, let's try building this business on our own. And I thus came to India. We raised some money from InfoEdge, and then we started building Policybazaar. I think in the very early days, it was just a tech platform like the ones we had seen abroad. But once we got into India, we realized the problems were different. The problem here was not that you were not able to save money on car insurance. The problem here was people did not have health insurance and life insurance. And if something wrong happened to the family, then how would they protect, against their costs? Because, house rent has to be paid, school fees have to be paid. One doesn't think about them as long as income continues. But if income stops, it becomes very hard. College fees have to be paid. So we decided to thus start educating people on the need for insurance and how insurance could help them take care of such risks from a financial perspective better. And that's really the start of Policybazaar.
Interesting. And what was the lag or time lag between starting Policy Bazaar and the health insurance business come in?
About 6 months, we started Policy Bazaar as a tech platform in 2008. And in January 2009, we launched health insurance
Got
and
it.
then term insurance in June 2009. And ever since, we have really focused on health insurance and term insurance as the primary products which most families should purchase for their own needs.
Right. Uh, Now, in building this venture, so what I heard was 2008, you came and got this inspiration from Admiral, and car was not working. Health was the segment which was there. And you were fortunate to get some funding from InfoEdge. And but entrepreneurship is far more complicated than this, right? So, what were the challenges that you faced in building Policy Bazaar up? The initial
I think because I had a very good idea of exactly what we were building in terms of the platform, in terms of technology, in terms of marketing, in terms of uh, integrations. Uh, so I think the execution risk was quite low.
Mhm.
What we did not have a very good idea, and having been from India originally, it was easy for me to settle back in, and most of the classmates of mine back from college were in all these insurance companies. So the network was also there. So I would say network, money, capability, knowledge, all were there. Understanding of what to do in the business was also there. Uh, Perhaps regulation was one thing I did not understand very well. But besides that, a key understanding of how the business functions, how it would make money, was fairly strong. And I think the most important thing I would say is we knew what we were doing was a good thing. See, there are many ways to make money. There are ways to make money by setting up a gambling site also. There's
Yeah,
also ways to make money by setting up an alcohol sales site.
yeah,
At a very fundamental level, we knew what we were doing was the right thing to do, right? As in for society. And when you think about things like ESG, they are not just words. At the end of it, something has to be sustainable for society, for environment, for people. And so if you're doing a good thing and you have all those capabilities, you just feel a little more motivated and it works well.
right. So if I have what I hear from you, that you had a lot of clarity about the idea, you had a lot of clarity about how to implement, and perhaps these are the biggest risks in getting started. And you
We,
would have seen,
also had a lot of clarity about why other people would struggle at doing the same business.
for
If
example,
you think about it, what we realized very early on
yeah,
was that when an agent sells insurance, he has to sell a certain amount of premium for it to
yeah,
make money.
yes,
At 10,000 rupees a policy, going and trying to explain to somebody that, please buy health insurance, please buy life insurance, was too expensive an activity for an agent. And then, if you think about it, in these products, you need very good disclosure. You need to understand if the person whom you are insuring is already not well, suffers from some disease, smokes, drinks, is unhealthy, their parents had some diseases. Now, all those disclosures work against sales. So,
yes,
any opaque channel would not be able to do a good job of disclosures, which means over time, uh, you would build unsustainable uh, sales lines. So, those two things essentially told us that as long as we are able to operate in this business, it would be almost impossible for somebody to create competition for it. And so that became
Right.
the sustaining strength over time.
How strong was your gut feel at that point of time?
It was
Or
a
was it,
clarity.
it
I
was
wouldn't
just
call
your
it gut
nervous?
feel.
Let me put it the other way.
I wouldn't call it gut feel. I'm actually a very risk averse person. So I really consider risks very heavily before doing something. Uh, there was just way too much clarity. And, up to 2020, everything that happened every year, we already knew back in 2008. So there were
Wow.
almost no surprises. After 2020, we have started having surprises, mostly positive,
Yeah.
but we started having surprises, new ways of doing things. But all I'm saying is, you had 12 years of execution clarity,
Wow. I
right?
think
You did not discover anything along the way which would make you change your strategy. So I think there was a huge amount of clarity.
and how did you acquire this? Because that's and like you would have met a lot of founders, and
I
it's
didn't go
unusual to
seeking.
find this
I
kind
did
of.
not. I did not go seeking that clarity. Uh, that existed. You know, in
Yeah.
1983, I had lost my uncle, and I saw the financial difficulty that family went through, and then the relationship difficulty and the emotional difficulty that family went through. Um, as soon as I joined my company in 1996 after IIM, one of my colleagues died, and I again saw what financial difficulty that family went through. Uh, I had multiple relatives, colleagues suffer very, very serious financial difficulty because of either death or disease or disability. See, many people here are very young, but my grandfather retired in 1970 something. He was a colonel in the Indian Army. His last drawn salary was 700 rupees.
Right.
Uh, his last drawn pension was about 2 lakh rupees. I'm trying to make a point here, so just stay with me on this. My
Yeah.
father retired in 1990, again as a colonel in the Indian Army. His last drawn salary was about 3,500 rupees. His current pension is about 1.4 lakh rupees.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is India is a country with high inflation. Today's money will not help you tomorrow. You have to have very strong ability to earn at all stages. They were in the army, so their pensions used to keep going up with time. Otherwise, whether it's pensions, whether it is child, you think when I went to IIM Ahmedabad, that was the first year they started charging. And how much were they charging? 10,000 rupees for the entire course.
Right.
Today, when many of you children will go to college, if you are lucky enough to go to an IIM, I think it will set you back by about 20 lakh rupees. That's 200 times more.
Yeah.
And it's only been 30 years. So India is a high inflation country. You have to understand that. And what that means is you have to always have the ability to earn, because what inflation means is you earn more, you spend more. But if you lose the ability to earn, money from the past cannot help you in the future
Right.
because its value becomes too little.
Yeah.
And this was something we knew extremely well. More than that, because of the backgrounds of army and then living in the UK, I understood the social infrastructure that is so necessary for keeping all these things like healthcare, pensions, etc. So it was sort of my own curiousness and the circumstances that I had lived through that gave me immense clarity on what was the exact problem and what was required to solve it, and why many other formats would have great difficulty in solving it, while we would be at an advantage to do so.
Fantastic, and I admire the clarity and the accumulated learning while you were growing up. How it helped. I have a question, and on behalf of all the young
Like in
students.
1983, I was 11 years old.
Right.
So
And you
10
still
years old,
remember
actually.
but you still remember the trouble and the pain that the family
Yeah,
underwent.
no, not just remember. It is like yesterday for me. I
Right.
remember the date it happened. I remember everything.
Yeah. Right. Now, considering the way you build the business, right? From 2008 to 2020, you saw 12 years and you saw how it's going to unfold. That's amazing clarity. What advice would you like to give to, you have most students who would be 14 years, 15 years, 16 years right now. They are excited about entrepreneurship. They're excited about innovation. What could be two or three messages that you want to give to them?
I think, see, you want to do well, spend a lot of time trying to understand the genuine problem you're trying to solve. Do not, in my opinion, don't start a startup because you want to start a startup. Now, people will give you different advice, but
Yeah.
that's my advice. Know very well what problem you're about to solve. Otherwise, you may learn something, you may not. You hear about that one startup that's done well. You've heard about one policy bazaar that's done well. What you don't hear about is 370 companies have so far tried to build a policy bazaar. 25 before policy bazaar and 345 after policy bazaar. And none of them have succeeded, right? Part of the reason was they didn't have that immense clarity, right? So I would say my own opinion is don't be in a hurry. Don't do it because you have to. Do it because you have so much clarity is the obvious thing to do.
Interesting. Yeah. So I think it's a great message, right? So don't do it for the sake of doing it, but build so much clarity that you just can't stop doing it, right?
Yeah.
You want to do it, right? Uh, okay, I have just one or two questions, then I'll let
Because
students.
otherwise what will happen is you will start, and God forbid, luck is not so much on your side. After 4 5 years, you could be stuck. And you may find it surprising, but there was a time, I would say, in the last 10 years when creative CVs were very much looked upon as positively. But
Right,
according to me, that time has started turning backwards. Now, you know, it's not that much the case.
right. So Yashish, I am also aware, right, that you are an avid sports person,
Yes.
right? And you have done Ironman kind of challenges and all that. What is it?
I have been a sports person since I was a child. So I started running when I was 8 years old. I used to cycle to school, and I used to enjoy cycling to school. I was the swimming captain of my IIT Delhi team. I was a water polo player. So over time, I have just found it easy to continue those things. And when I started Policy Bazaar, my family carried on living in London. So what that did was gave me a lot of time because, as you can imagine, I didn't have any children to drop to school.
Yeah.
Uh, I had a lot of free time, and that allowed me to do a little more training than I usually would have done otherwise. So I guess, yeah, that's what it is.
So yeah, when I saw that news, the your achievement on Facebook, right? So I really thought very inspiring, hard thing. There are many people who want to do it. There are very few who are actually able to complete it in the manner you did it with so much of fun and everything. Here's a person who really likes to take on challenge, and the person who really likes to prepare well, right? And I think the same ingredients are also part of your Policy Bazaar dream, prepare well, plan it well, so much plan it so well that execution has to happen in the best manner. Does that fit the description, or
Yeah, I think so. I think plan well and you should be fine.
right? Okay. I have okay. Can I ask students to ask question? And the students who want to ask question, you can. You have already raised your hand. I'm scrolling up some of the question. Yeah, let's say Triveni Rajput. Can I find Triveni Rajput? Let me see. Triveni, can you switch on your camera? I can't see her, Triveni Rajput, but her question is very interesting. Her question is, sir, how to find any problem and also how to make your company. Okay, she's saying that if you are not able to make it, what should you do, or what should we do? You started something. If you're not able to make it, what should we do?
See, that is what I also meant by saying don't start unnecessarily. Don't start because, there is this bit of a hawa going on that
करना है.
सबको स्टार्टअप करना है, सब बच्चों को स्टार्टअप करना है.
हाँ.
Necessary. You learn a lot in a job as well.
Yeah.
You work for a year or two, you learn a lot. First thing
Yeah.
you learn is that there is something called a boss who is not your parent,
Yeah.
whom you cannot say कि आज सवेरे उठने का मन नहीं है. Right?
Yeah.
So discipline बहुत जल्दी आता है. So I think it is good to face a few years of that environment, because in my opinion it sorts you out. See, I went to a hostel very young, so we got sorted out by teachers there.
Yeah.
But if you haven't had the opportunity to go to a hostel, you've gone to a day school, you've basically not had that hard push.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing to get it, is my opinion. So everybody doesn't have to start up something. And I think startups are not easy. Not many startups in this country have actually succeeded.
Yeah.
Right? When you look at it, there's a handful of startups that have actually gone on to have some success.
Yeah.
So I would say bear those two in mind before you say, I want to do a startup. And what you would find is there'll be far fewer startups which we started which actually fail. Because once you have a huge amount of clarity, our country is a country of opportunity. And actually finding success is not that hard once you have clarity. The problem is most people start a startup because startup करना है, पैसे मिल रहे हैं, चलो कर लेते हैं.
Right. That is
that
cool. It's a nice thing to do.
It's a nice, cool thing to do.
Yeah.
Then it is very likely that it may not work also.
Right.
And by the time it doesn't work and you find out you are 6-7 years older and your colleagues have actually built a career in that much time.
Yeah.
And that you may or may not. Yeah, it's a difficult position.
No,
so all I think is don't do it without thinking.
Don't do it without thinking. Don't do it without your research. Don't do it without good planning. And this is the right time to start building up. And also, you're saying
some one of the clearest indicators that you have something is if other good people are willing to join you and join you for less money than they would otherwise. See, what am I trying to say? Get yourself, your ideas, your processes, a little bit of external validation.
Right.
Because internally, your parents and friends have always encouraged you only. And today is the generation where we say everybody must be encouraged.
Yeah.
So they are not challenging you at all.
Yeah.
And what that may or may not mean is that you may just be in a very comfortable zone thinking you got a great idea, while it may not be a good idea. A good idea is where, I guess, somebody else is willing to put 10 rupees of their money, not your parents, not your parents' friends, but somebody totally different,
Yeah.
right? And some employees are willing to join you for lower salary than they earn elsewhere. Not
So
for more salary, for
did
actually
you have
lower
that,
salary.
did you have that experience? People are willing to join in the early days of Policy Bazaar,
The
sacrificing their,
I will explain. For the
yeah.
first 7 months of Policy Bazaar, nobody was paid a salary.
Wow.
And we had 18 people as part of Policy Bazaar. These were middle class families who had their own children, who had their own families, who had their own rents to pay, but nobody drew a salary. None of them drew a salary.
18 people.
18 people.
That was a
The first time salary was paid in Policy Bazaar was October 2008. Policy Bazaar actually started in June 2008. So June, July, August, September till October end, nobody was paid a salary.
people waited or sacrificed, whatever. Right?
Yeah,
They had
because my point is that is what told me that it was a good idea, that people were willing to do that.
right. And
If nobody willing to do that, that means you just, with your own money, you can spend it whichever way you want.
And how hard was it to lead this team of 18 people?
For me, it was, I hate to say it was a bit natural.
Yeah.
Because the clarity was there and those people did have enough trust that it was the right thing. And they followed.
Right. Great.
How do you know if you're a leader? You know if you're a leader if somebody's following you.
Yeah. And there were 18 of them. Day one, they were willing
Otherwise, yeah.
18. Yeah, I have, okay. I can't see your name. Is it Divyansh?
Rudransh.
Rudransh, yeah. Rudransh, can you unmute and ask your question? Keep it brief.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
little
I can hear
louder.
you, Raj.
Yes. So my question was that your company deals with money and things like that. So how do you build trust with your customers?
So trust is built through action and statements which corroborate each other. So today, if you buy a health insurance policy from Policy Bazaar and then somebody happens to go to hospital, we will stand with that person and make sure that in 80-90% of the cases, we make sure your claim is paid. There will be times when we will fail. But there'll be more often that we will succeed. And doing that gets us trust. But we also run the same thing in our advertisements. That look, we will be there within 30 minutes to help you at the point of hospitalization with your claim. I think both of these work in tandem. And I gave you just example, right? So I think actually doing the right things builds trust, but then you also have to talk about them. Nobody else will talk about you as much as you can talk about yourself. So both of them go hand in hand.
Great. Karan Nanda, would you unmute and ask your question and give your school class also?
Yes, yes, sir. Sir, I'm Karan Nanda from Geeta Balniketan Senior Secondary School from Faridabad.
Hi.
Sawal pucho, Karan.
Sir, I have a question. You started Policy Bazaar in 2008. So, how many members were there with you? As nothing can happen without any teamwork.
He explained, Karan, right now.
So no, so we had 18 people that I requested they join Policy Bazaar. They also wanted to. And so we started with those 18. That included a technology team, that included a marketing team, that included a finance team, that included one administration person, included leadership. But there were in all 18 people on the day we started Policy Bazaar.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sakshi.
Sir, I have one more question.
Sure.
Yeah, Karan.
Sir, during your bad times, what made your confidence to do your work? मतलब आपके जैसे काफी एक नहीं चल रहा था एक अच्छा टाइम, तो क्या आपको सपोर्ट मिला
See,
इस चीज से?
हमारे 18 लोग थे एक दूसरे को सपोर्ट करने के लिए. हमारी फैमिली थी. आई यूज टू हैव माई पेरेंट्स who used to live in Noida. I used to go to their house every day. I got a lot of support from them. Basically, that's where you get support from. Family, colleagues, friends. Support तो वहीं से आता है.
Great. Sakshi, can you unmute and ask your question?
Good evening, sir. It's an honor to have you here on the platform. My question to you is that you mentioned in one of your interview that IIT Delhi taught you that not to take life very seriously. Sir, I as an individual is someone who wants to achieve everything. I have been told by my parents that don't run behind everything. It's not a good thing. But I believe that if I can achieve everything, then why not to run after it? So one advice we would like to give to students like me who are extremely an overthinker and they actually want to, achieve the conquer this world sort of a thing.
So I don't know what you mean by achieve everything. Does that, but see, what you're saying is perhaps you are an ambitious person. There's no harm being ambitious. It's a very good thing to be ambitious, right? I think what your parents may be saying is channelize or focus those energies in one direction. I think both work. I have seen both work for people. I am somebody who likes to do multiple things, not at the same time, but I would like to do sports. I would like to do my business. I would like to have family. When they say family, society, work, fitness, I want to have it all. And I think if I did not have any one of them, the other 3, 4 would start weakening. But I also hear there are friends of mine who say, no, we will only focus on one. And they also do okay. What I have noticed over the last 30, 40 years is that, yes, they also do okay. And this method also works. But this method gives you longer lasting, it just is more sustainable. Achieving success by ignoring family or friends or health can at times get you success. Point is, can you retain that success for 20 years, 30 years? I have rarely seen that happen. So I have seen that most people who are able to sustain are people who have a balance. But yeah, that's what I would say. And so they're trying to do multiple things.
Yeah, Sakshi, it's largely about knowing yourself and knowing where you draw your energies from, right? And some people like Yashish, the larger spread. Some people could be very self-contained and say, okay, focus, do only one thing, right? Devashish Rana, can you unmute and ask your question?
Good evening, sir. Good evening. It's a true honor for me. It's a true honor for me to actually speak to you. I am an aspiring developer. I have experience in data science as well as software. And my question is that how can I introduce as well as convince my target customers or investors to actually look after my, not just look after, uh, also try and improve or provide suggestions for my research and development projects as well as platforms which I do develop.
Where
How
are
can
you
I,
from,
sir?
Devashish? And
So I'm from Ranchi, Jharkhand, and I study in JVM Shamli.
which class?
I study in class 12.
Got it. Okay, Yashish, you understood.
Thank you, Devashish. See, you have to define a little better who you are. You said you work in the development function. You're a coding person. You're a developer. You're a good developer. That is one function. The second, but you also said you want to see how to attract customers, now that becomes a more holistic business function. You can be both. There is no harm being both, but you need to perhaps know which one of them you are on a primary basis. Do you want to build a business? Do you want to be a very good developer? Because those two are different things. You solve these things in a startup environment through partners. So either your partner is going to be a business person, or your partner will be a development person, a tech person. And it's not necessary that it is one or the other. I'm not saying one is better than the other. But I think it's important for you to define which one of the two you are. Unless you are saying you are a business person who will also do their own development, or you're a developer who will also build their own business. Even that statement, both of those are quite important, because which one are you first? Yeah, because they are different. That's what I'm trying to say. They are different. One thinks about the best quality of code. One thinks about the biggest problem that exists, which they can try and solve. And they're not necessarily the same. I don't know
When
if I
did
made
you get that clarity, Yashish? Because it's a wonderful, it's a real challenge, right? And it's very easy to wear both the hats, but to say, no, I am this.
No, there's no harm wearing both hats. You have to know which is the primary hat.
The primary hat. And
yeah, because one hat is always more primary. Look, I'm a business person.
Right.
Yes, I did go to IIT. Yes, I do know coding. I have been the chief technology officer of a public company, but I do not consider myself as a technology officer. I consider myself as a CEO. Those are two different roles, because a CEO has a lot more to think about than just technology. He has to think about team, he has to think about finance, he has to think about investors, he has to think about business, problem, solution. It's very wide. He's not a specialist in anything. Yes, I also have an MBA in finance. I can also be a CFO. But that doesn't mean I'm a CFO. I am still a CEO, right? I can also run my marketing. I can also be the chief marketing officer. But I have to know which one of them I actually am. I'm also very good in analytics. So I can be the chief information officer, right? But am I that or am I not? Because if I'm not, the biggest strength comes from teams. And teams know how to delegate to each other. And you have to know which part of you want to delegate, which part you will not delegate. What is the CEO's biggest role? The biggest role is making decisions, being resourceful, finding resources, right? Now, that is the part I don't delegate. Decision making, I make the decisions. But execution, I'm willing to. At the same time, if I was a CTO, I would tell the CEO that, listen, what technology, how, etc. You may be a CTO, but then don't tell me. I'll handle it. You do your job. I'm doing my job. That way, both of us will be able to get a good company going. It's very important, specifically for developers, because tech is such an important part of business. It's very important for them to have that clarity. It may not be as important for many other functions. Like a marketing and CEO can go together because it's not that critical a role in an organization. But I think tech and CEO, yeah, you need to probably think it through.
And when did you get this moment of clarity that you are a CEO than a CTO?
I could tell because I was resourceful. I used to draw more clarity than most people. I could link one thing with the other a lot. Rather than doing one thing, I would prefer linking multiple things, right? Orchestrating rather than focusing on just one. Yeah, you realize, and I was very good at making decisions. Like, I'm not saying I made good decisions. See, decision making is not about making good decisions. Making is all about making decisions. Many people, when they come in front of a decision, they cannot make a decision.
Yeah,
जाऊं कि right जाऊं, right?
exactly. Yeah,
Some people just say, forget it, मैं right जा रहा हूं. That's a decision.
right.
Now, whether it's a good decision, bad decision comes later. But the point is, they at least have the ability to decide. And without making decisions, organizations can't move forward. So some of the CEOs' biggest strengths is being decisive.
Right. Adya Gupta, your chance. Sorry, Adya.
Hi, Adya, how are you? You're on mute right now. Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
Sir, I'm fine. Good evening, sir. This side Adya. So I really wanted to ask you that how to compete with your competitors in the market, because this market comes with a lot of competitors and we know that everyone is trying their hard to achieve things. Like you are doing really well in your field, but the other competitor came in market and their advertising skills are really, really well. So this attracts the customers towards themselves. So in that condition, what a CEO or what a company could do in that case?
See, you have to play to your strengths. And you have to make your competitors fall to their weaknesses. And strength and weaknesses can be many. Somebody's strength may be tech, somebody's strength may be capital, somebody's strength may be design, somebody's strength may be partnerships. You have to be, I think a good entrepreneur or a good leader has a very good sense of what are their strengths and what are their competitors' strengths. And if you also have a competitor who has a lot of clarity, they also perhaps know that. So they will hurt you where they can hurt you. And you will hurt them back where you can hurt them. But what I have noticed over time is it's more mind game than physical game. And of course, execution is key, and eventually execution wins the day. But like if somebody is big, I'll give you a very simple example, right? If somebody is very big in a market and they run an auction, like, you know, one person a month will get a car, the small player cannot do that. But what can a small player do? A small player who sells only 10 tickets can afford to give all 10 for free also. Because how much money will you lose? While the person who's selling 1,000,000 tickets cannot afford to do that. So you see how size can be both a strength and a weakness. A small player can discount. A large player should never play the discounting game. But you see so many companies still doing that. Large companies still playing the discounting game.
Yeah.
Because they get hurt on the whole volume. They should play the branding game. They should play the innovation game. Right? But large companies feel they have too much money. They can afford to burn longer. So they start burning. That is stupidity. I'm just giving you some examples. There is no, or at least I haven't seen a book written there of, you know, this, what you would call jujutsu, if you would, judo.
Yeah.
Judo is about using your opponent's strength to help yourself. But as any leader, you would have to be extremely good at that. Of knowing what you are good at, protecting that, knowing what your opponent is good at, knowing where you can beat them, and taking advantage of that.
Fantastic. Dharya Jain, Yashish, you have time? We can take 2 or 3 questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dharya Jain, please unmute. Can't hear you, Daria. I think you are inaudible. Okay. By the time, Daria, can you try and work on your setting? I have a question from Geetika Vishwanath, and her question is, okay, it's a hypothetical question, but maybe Yashish, she says that, okay, Policybazaar has been successful, but at some point, if there is a downfall or a dip, how would you overcome it?
An organization does not have to keep doing what it is doing. And you have to prepare yourself. Like, I'll give you a very simple example. How do I think? We have a very capable team by now, which has been developed. And all the operations are being run by that team. Our next 3 years of results are pretty well set in stone. They might move up by 5%, 10% here or there, up or down, right? But there will be no surprise there. But what you prepare yourself for is beyond that time frame. And that becomes a CEO's primary job, especially in my kind of situation, where I would be spending time on what could hurt us, let's say 2030 onwards, which is more than 5 years away. And how do we start preparing for that today? And that is how you stay ahead of competition. Now, beyond that, there will be lots of right brain activity that will happen. You know, ChatGPT will come out, something else will happen. And what you have to do is be prepared to handle those situations. So some of your costs, you should have such that you can reduce them very rapidly. And you should always be aware of what those are. So you have to have the ability to come down, hunker down to a very low burn very rapidly if your revenues were to disappear. And that is usually called flex or flexibility in an organization. So build flexibility, even if it comes at a certain cost. I'll give you a very simple example. I have been told we have 17,000 employees.
Wow.
I've been told to get a corporate office because it reduces rental cost. Right? You would agree. Buying a building is much cheaper than renting. I don't want to do it because it doesn't have flexibility. If I'm renting a building, I can leave it. If I own the building, where do I go? Things like this, right? So you build in flexibility into your business so you can handle the ups and downs. See, why do large investment business like tankers, like airlines have difficulty? Because they have fixed costs. So when things go down, they're not able to adjust. So try and build a business which is variable.
Right.
You can adjust. That's what I would say, especially if you have a business which is going up and down. By the way, we are now getting a corporate office, but that's because we've reached a certain level of stability that we can do it. But all I'm saying is we avoided for 17 years for that reason, to keep the flexibility.
Avoided till you hit 17,000 employees.
Yeah, we've avoided it till long time so that now we can, do it this way.
Okay, interesting insight. Srijan Maurya, can you unmute and ask?
Hello.
Hi, Srijan.
Srijan, can you unmute? I'm putting an unmute option from my side. But Dhairya Jain, can you try again? Dhairya? Try.
Hello.
Yeah, little louder.
Hello. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Daria.
How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you.
Sir, I have a question that who inspired you to become an entrepreneur at that stage?
Nobody inspired me here. I would have taken the job at Admiral. My wife just did not want to join there. So I think I owe this to my wife, because if she had been happy about joining Admiral, I would have joined. And it was because she was unhappy that And the second thing I would say is maybe I was a nice person that I take care of our family feelings. Otherwise, I could have just said that, okay, you're unhappy. I'm still joining. But I wouldn't do things which make my family unhappy.
Yeah.
So I think somewhere I would say you have to call it luck. Somewhere it's chance, but it wasn't. See, I'm one of those people. I don't want to give you kids the wrong examples. Don't follow my example, right? I have barely ever read a book. I see that as a positive because I don't get influenced by other ideas. I develop my own creativity. Now, that's a wrong thing. I get it. I don't want you to become like me, but that works for me,
No, I
right?
agree with you, Yashish. I'm in the same league and I understand what you're saying, but not to an advice that.
But to an extent, I don't have role models. I don't have people I get inspired by. I don't read autobiographies too much. Maybe some sports people I read their autobiography more out of interest for their determination, for how they did things. See, at the end of it, we all try hard. Some of us will get a little luckier than the others. Right? So don't try to give all your credit to yourself. As in, that goes for me also. Right? There's a huge amount of luck involved. Yes, we all do our best. That's what we all try.
So I
Right.
would
Shubh Agarwal, can you ask your question?
Yes, sir.
Which school? Where do you study?
I'm from DPS Varanasi.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that what are some approaches an individual can take who is in school or in college to successfully make a startup, and what knowledge and skills are essential for the growth of that particular area?
So, very counter advice, maybe, or maybe the right advice. Try to identify good people in your class who have skills which are different from yours. So if you are a coder, they understand business more, they come from a business family, they maybe have money. If you have money, maybe they are a good coder, right? Form teams of 2, 3, 4 people and decide that we'll do something together. Come up with ideas, brainstorm them, keep almost an external jury, not your parents, not your parents' friends, maybe some business person in your local area, right, in Varanasi, whom you all go to once in, don't take too much of their time, otherwise they'll stop talking to you after some time, right? But maybe once in 3 months, go to them and say, this is what we are thinking, what do you think? And tell them you'll only do something once they put 1 lakh rupees. I know you also have 1 lakh rupees, but you want them to also do that. I think that's a great way of doing it. You'll have far higher chance of success than just doing something on your own.
No, great advice, Yashish. Shubh, this is fantastic. This is as great an answer as it could be, and practical, right? So listen, Yashish, I think it's going to be 6. I want to ask two very brief, simple questions from you.
Right.
This is completely for the kids. What were your favorite subjects in school?
Mathematics and physics.
Maths and physics. Okay. And did you know that you're going to be entrepreneur then, or leader? Did you have leadership qualities?
I think by the time I was at IIM,
Yeah.
I knew that I would end up being an entrepreneur.
Right.
But I didn't know how, because I needed the salaries.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how, but I think I knew by then that entrepreneurship is the right route for me.
Right. So I think I'm done with the question. Any last word of advice that you want to give to the young students?
I would say always try and get external validation. See, I sell insurance. Every insurance company I meet tells me they are the best insurance company. But then there are 53 insurance companies, right? You are always going to be loved by your parents. They are always going to think you are the most special thing that ever happened in the world. And that is perhaps true. For you also, you are the most special thing that ever happened in the world. So we all grow up in a huge amount of self-importance, which is why I again and again emphasize external validation. Because otherwise, we become too full of ourselves. And at some point, that hurts us. That's all I would say. And it's the same advice I would give my children. You guys are much younger than my children. My children are 20 and 22 years old. But it's the same advice I will give my grandchildren as well.
Fantastic. Yashish, this was so lovely to have you. Wonderful. If there are students out there, I have put, you can all unmute yourself. You have the ability to unmute yourself. And can you give a round of applause to Yashish? Yashish, it's lovely to be here.
Sir, I have question, sir. Sir, please, sir, I have question.
Yes, okay, we'll take one question.
Sir, please.
Pucho.
Sir,
Naam,
that the sir which
what's
have
your
the great bazaar, they are the manager of that policy bazaar, or they are the like member of it or owner.
Can you ask your question, man? What's your name?
Triveni.
Okay, Triveni, Sawal, what is your question? Can you ask your question again?
That policy bazaar. I watch when I watch the TV, I see more ads about the policy bazaar. Then sir which are joined to us, they are the owner of the policy bazaar or manager or member. I have doubt.
Sir is the owner of
Okay,
policy.
no, I will clarify.
Yeah.
So you see adverts of Policybazaar. I started Policybazaar. The day I started Policybazaar, I had about 30% of Policybazaar's ownership. Today, I have about 6-7% of Policybazaar ownership. So I kept raising money. And as I raised money, my shareholding got diluted. I also sold some of my shares in the middle. So today I am left with between 6 to 7% shares. But yes, the remaining 93 to 94% is owned by other people, managers, investors. And yes, professionally, I'm a manager of Policybazaar and a 6 to 7% owner of Policybazaar. See, as you have very large companies, you have not a single owner. They are owned by, thousands of people. So I'm the largest individual owner of shares of Policybazaar. Okay.
That is as precise as it could be.
Excuse me, sir. And also, sir,
One question.
Listen, boys and girls, can I request that we don't take much more of his time? He's already given 1.5 hours. Can I request you to be gentle
I
enough
have a
to?
question.
I just want to ask you a question. I have one question, please. I have one question.
Listen, folks. Yashish, I will have to clap on behalf of everyone for your wonderful time. We'll have to call you again for, that so many questions can keep coming, but lovely. You will have to, just give me a second. You will have to, this was fantastic, a very candid chat, a lot of learning personally for me, and I'm sure even for the kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sanjeeva. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks now. Bye.
Thank you. Boys and girls, with this, we come to the close of this session. Tomorrow, we are having another session. See you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.